How you doing, folks? It's Mitch, your Hard Intentions YouTube channel. We also have hardintentions.com, where we have merchandise. You know, I got talked to a couple of my friends the other day. We noticed there have been quite a few murders lately in California prison system. In the news, I think they say they have about 14 murders so far this year, maybe more by now. And the staff are like, "What the hell's going on?" Well, you know, what's going on is the system's changed, and most of the guys that you know, the overcrowding. At one time, they had 180,000 people almost in California State Prison. They had all the prison gangs locked up. Now the prison gangs are out of the hole on the main lines, and the population's dropped. So, you know, a lot of the three strikers were let out that had BS cases, and now you have guys that had three strikes for serious cases. They're not going to let them out. People are realizing they're not going to get out until, you know, they do a significant amount of time. And some guys just, like I was at one point, you know, I just figured, hey, I'm going to be here the rest of my life. And in my case, I decided to just focus on my art, music collection, getting a good meal, and just being comfortable, you know, for the rest of my life. And other guys are just not satisfied. They're going to be like, whatever. They're just going to be gangsters. But in this case, we were talking about somebody they knew who had gotten killed, and this guy got busted when he was 16 years old in 1976. He was about 64 now. He had not been out, so he did a significant amount of time, almost his whole life. Turns out he had some brain tumors. This is a theory behind, it's pretty accurate. Talking to my friend who was at the same prison this guy got killed at. So anyway, this guy had brain tumors. I guess the neighborhood he grew up in was a toxic dump. You know, his wife had a lot of problems. She grew up in the same neighborhood. This guy had brain tumors and growths in his skull, which caused him to have erratic behavior. So, you know, this guy was in Tracy back in the day, stand up, get with it kind of guy, back when the whites were being basically preyed on and killed by Northern Hispanic prison gang and black prison gangs. He was there, and he was in the mix. Throughout his whole career, he was a stand-up dude from everything I heard. And so as these tumors grew in his brain, which my friend believes, because he grew up in the same area, it's from growing up in this area, we had toxic dump, you know, in the neighborhood, a toxic waste site, you know, kind of like Love Canal thing. Anyway, his behavior was erratic, and so they put him in an EOP program, and you know, that's a no-no in California State Prison. And then they released him back out to the main line where somebody stabbed him and killed him. And supposedly the guy that's a suspect had a couple prison stabbings prior to this, 2 different occasions, and he's a 3-striker. So he went from being a 3-striker to a killer. So supposedly. So here's the deal. Why would somebody who goes to EOP be a victim? Well, you know, they started the they started the S&Y program, and so guys would drop out or lock up. You're not really a dropout unless you're a member of a prison gang, or they would be in debt and lock up, and they would realize they don't really want to be on an S&Y yard, or they burned all their bridges on S&Y and they want to come back to the main line. So what they would do, they would play the mental ill patient card. They would go to EOP, which is extended outpatient. They have 2 mental health programs, triple CMS, which I don't know what the triple C stands for, triple CMS. And then the EOP is extended outpatient, I believe. EOP is more severe program than the triple CMS. If you're white, you're not supposed to be involved with either one of those programs. You're not supposed to be taking medication for mental illness. And so anyway, and that's how things evolve too. So anyway, these guys in SNY would decide, well, I don't want to be an SNY anymore. I want to go back to mainline. Maybe people forgot about me. And they got so many prisons, they could take you from a Northern California prison, stick you down south where nobody knew you checked in yet. And they would slide into the triple CMS program and then go to the or EOP and then go to triple CMS and then back to a mainline. Well, guys found out that these guys were coming back to the mainline through the triple CMS program. So they put out a policy, especially in level 4s and some level 3s. Level 2s, I didn't really tripped on it, you know, but especially level 4s and some level 3s. If you're an EOP, you're a victim. If you come from EOP, you're white, you're going to be removed from the yard, whether you get 2-on-1, I don't know if they do that anymore, or stabbed, because they don't know if you're S&Y coming back to the main line, or if you really were just a nut or whatever. They don't know why you were in the EOP program. So evidently this guy, I believe his first name was Robert Tunstall, they put him in EOP because he had erratic behavior due to the brain tumors he had. You know, in his mind, he's a stand-up dude. He's been around forever. He's been involved with riots. He was in a war zone in Tracy where whites were pretty short, held his mud, did his business. And so there's no reason for him to be victimized by anybody. So he came back to the main line to Salinas Valley and stabbed him, killed him. So it's pretty sad. And a friend of mine was there in Salinas Valley many years ago. He's out now, but so he was on the yard there, and you know, he was slinging a little weed. You know, guys on the yard owed him a little money. I think shot caller owed him quite a bit of money, and so he's there. Guy pops up on the yard. He's EOP. So my friend Sally tells this guy, "Hey, you should go tell the psychs you're hearing voices, and they'll put you back in EOP." And so he did. He did. And so the guy disappears, goes to EOP. Well, later on, he came back to the yard, and they put him in the shock collar cell. He tells the shock collar, "Well, that guy over there told me just to tell the psych I was hearing voices," and they put me back in EOP. So he's like, "All right, you know." And so they're going to stab this guy, my friend Selly, for telling this guy to do that and for not letting people know he came from EOP or whatever. So my friend goes out the yard, tells, you know, shot caller, "Hey man, you're not stabbing my Selly." And my friend been around since 1976 as well. And they played dumb, like, "What do you mean?" You know, he's like, "Dude, I've been around the block, you know, I know what the fuck's going on." And now mind you, these guys owe him money, you know. So they're like, "Yeah, okay," you know. And he tells him, "You know, you're just spilling blood on the yard just to have it, just to spill blood for no significant reason, you know, it's bullshit." So anyway, they stabbed my friend, stabbed him in the face, chest, shoulder, tried to kill him. So, and basically because of the EOP thing was their excuse, but really maybe because they owed him money, they didn't want to pay, and so they had a good out, right? Hey, he was involved with this guy Selly. You know, his Selly was involved with this EOP, and he's trying to protect his Selly and the EOP guy. So, you know, and my friend's a pretty tough guy. So that's how they manipulate things. You know, they'll go in debt, owe you money, and find a reason to not pay you through violence. I mean, it's a pretty sad deal. Now the triple CMS EOP thing has been around for quite a long time. I know a dude in prison that was EOP, or actually he was a JCAT, they used to call it back then. I asked him, man, why'd you go JCAT? Because he's a fairly normal guy. He was in and out of prison. He's been out for quite a while now, but he's one of them guys that just decided prison's not where it's at anymore. Penalty's too great for profit of crime, so he decided he's over it. But he said when he first went to prison, he was in the county jail, and some guy told me, you want to do hard time or you want to do easy time? He said, I want to do easy time. He says, then when you play the nut roll, you go in, you become a JCAT. And see, back then they had two prisons they sent JCATs to: CMF, CMC, California Men's Colony, California Medical Facility, Vacaville, San Luis Obispo. They were medical facilities, but they had psych programs in those two prisons. Didn't matter what level you were. If you had level 4 points or level 1 points, if you were a JCAT, they also had KCAT, which I think was like a mental retardation thing or whatever. They would send you to those two prisons because they were hospital type settings. Even now, CMC and CMF are both medical prisons. They were pretty lax. They had lifer programs there under the psych services facilitated the lifer programs. Psychologists, ran the program. So if you were a lifer and the board told you to go do a program, you would go there, do your program, and then you would go back to the prison that you came from. But JCATs would go there and they would fuck up, get in trouble, and they even had their own like ad seg type thing for nuts in CMF. And so it got to the point where guys were manipulating the program. And these guys were going to these prisons as a JCAT and acting up, running amok, because in their mind they would not be sent to a regular prison, period. They're JCATs. And the psych program, these guys are in as psychiatrists, not psychologists, or both, but they had a lot of juice. They couldn't transfer them. Like if they were level 4 and they were screwing up and they're JCATs, they couldn't just send them to Folsom or San Quentin, because they were JCATs. They were categorized through the psychiatric program. And so these guys manipulated it. They got to do easy time. A lot of them were in and out of prison. They would get on psych meds and spit them out. They wouldn't take them, out running amok, getting high, partying, screwing up. These are the guys that were faking, And so what CDC decided to do was they said, all right, they designated, once they built all these prisons, they got like 34 prisons. They've closed a few since. They designated these prisons level 4, these level 3s, these level 2s. We're going to have, and they changed it from Cat J and all that to triple CMS and EOP. And so they changed the category, the classification, if you will, of being a nut in prison, mental ill people. So then they said, all right, guys that were in CMF or CMC and they were screwing up, they were like, you know what? You're going to New Folsom, to this yard, or you're going to Tehachapi, or you're going to certain prison. So now these guys can go anywhere, pretty much, because they pass out psych meds in almost every prison, right? So that kind of messed up their little, I'm going to do easy time game. And so now you have mainline yards with nuts on them. And so mainline guys would see these dudes as weak. Especially the guys they knew were playing the game. they were like, well, why was this guy playing this game to be in an easy prison? Well, some guys want to do easy time. They don't have it in them to be the level 4 gangster, you know, whatever. They were going to level 4 yards now. And guys looked at them as suspicious. Why were they there? And they were easy victims. If somebody needed a way out of a debt, or somebody wanted to divert attention from their own, that's what a lot of tough guys do in prison. You know, they got shit in their closet, or they're doing dirty shit on the yard, and they want to divert the attention. You know, they got the shiny object over here. Look at the shiny object. Don't look at me. The shiny object is the nut, the mentally ill guy, or the guy who is faking mental illness to do easy time. So they started getting preyed on a little bit, and then, you know, the S&Y guys coming back to the main line through the EOP program, that really put a lot of heat on it. And so now, if you're white, you go to prison and you go down the mental ill program, you're going to be victimized at certain prisons. I would say almost all level 4 prisons and some level 3 prisons, you're going to be a victim. Maybe even in a couple level 2s, I don't know. Level 2s are pretty more lenient, you know. But yeah, it's not. It's frowned on, and you will be victimized. And I think in this day and age, it's pretty sad deal. They're taking what they refer to as transgender inmates who still have their penises, and sending them to CIW, California Institution for Women. So in a woman's prison, they have dudes with boobs, breastises, and they're in a woman's prison. They still have their male genitalia. So, I mean, if they're going to cater to transgender, you know, dudes and put them in a women's prison to protect them from predatory behavior inside the male prisons, which I'm assuming that's why they're doing it. Of course, since some of these women are getting pregnant by these dudes, from what I hear, then I really think if someone is really determined to have mental illness, they need to go back to having certain prisons specifically for mental ill people. If you're not going to have a mental, whatever they used to call them, you know, the mental hospitals like Atascadero, which still is there. They had Patton, Napa, Atascadero. They had mental hospitals in California. They closed them. And then, so if you're going to send your mental patients to prison because they're out smoking crack and doing stupid shit because they're mentally ill because the drugs they're taking, they commit some kind of crime. Once they determine they really are mental patients, they should have their own prisons for them like they used to back in the day. The system worked pretty good. If you're in Tracy, Soledad, Quentin, or Folsom, you didn't have to worry about some J-Cat on the yard because they were in their own prisons. And if you were in that prison doing a program, you generally live in a different housing unit than them guys, and you didn't really have to worry about them messing with your program. And in some cases, when you're on the yard and you saw them, they were kind of entertaining. Guys would sit on the yard and smoke weed and laugh, and you know, at some of the nuts. Yeah, I just think, you know, there really are people who have they're mentally challenged, they have mental problems. Psychologically, they can't handle prison. Psychologically, they're schizophrenic, whatever the diagnoses are. They really are mentally ill, and they should have their own prisons. For the guys playing the mental ill game, they kind of screwed that up for the truly mentally ill people. So I don't think prison's a good place for mentally ill people. If you're going to send them there, they should have their own prisons like they used to. And you know, to prey on people that are mentally ill for real, I understand the guys coming from SNY through EOP and all that, but they, maybe you could check it out and see if that's the case, then whatever, But if a guy's truly a mental patient, it's kind of like, kicking a dog, right? It's kind of weak, you um, I think. So if you go to prison, bottom line, if you have mental problems out here in the streets, um, I communicate with some guys that have some issues that I try to coach them through. I don't know how successful I am at it. Guys are facing challenges in life. I have guys tell me they've had a gun to the side of their head, and thank you for helping me through it. Get some help. Helps out here. When I worked in Skid Row, I saw social workers talking to people that had problems right on the street, homeless people. But I mean, there's places to go. But if you go to prison and you're mentally ill and you know it, let it be known. If you're not, and you go down that road because you think you're going to do some easy time, it could end up costing you your life. It could, as it did with the Robert, rest in peace. Sad deal. So take care of your mental health and do it hard. Thanks for watching, folks. Take care.